I was wrong about my daughter. For 31 years I thought I knew her completely. I thought I knew every corner of her life. The way she took her coffee black with 1 spoon of sugar, the way she hummed old Merle Haggard songs when she was washing dishes, the way she'd call me every Sunday evening at 7 o'clock without fail, no matter where she was or what she was doing. I thought I knew her. I was wrong. Her name was Laurel. My daughter. 38 years old when she died, and even now, sitting here in the house where I raised her, I still reach for the phone on Sunday evenings before I remember. The call I got that November was from a sheriff's deputy in Clarkson County, Tennessee. He told me there'd been an accident on Route 41 heading out toward the lake. A pickup truck crossed the center line. Laurel's car went through the guardrail. They said she likely didn't feel anything. They always say that, and I've never once believed it, but I nodded into the phone and said thank you the way you do when you don't know what else to say. My son-in-law, her husband Reeves, was with her that night. He died too, they told me. Both of them gone in the space of a second on a cold Tuesday night in November, on a road Laurel had driven 100 times before. I sat in my kitchen in Bowling Green, Kentucky for a long time after that call, just sat there with the overhead light buzzing and my coffee going cold and my hands flat on the table like they belonged to someone else. I was 63 years old. I'd already lost my wife to cancer 7 years before. I thought I understood grief. I didn't understand anything. The funeral was held on a Friday. Small. Laurel hadn't been the type to collect a crowd. She was quiet and careful with people. Slow to trust. The kind of woman who had 3 real friends instead of 30 acquaintances. I respected that about her. It was one of the things she got from her mother. Reeves's family came down from Ohio. His mother, a stiff woman named Patrice, shook my hand at the graveside and looked at me like I was someone she'd seen once in a waiting room and couldn't quite place. His brother stood beside her in a suit that was too small for him, and they left before the reception was over. I drove home alone that evening, and I thought, that's it. That's all of it. There is nothing left to find out. I was so completely wrong. 3 weeks after the funeral, I got a call from a lawyer's office in Nashville. A woman named Susan Holt from Holt & Associates on West End Avenue. She told me she'd been Laurel's personal attorney for the past 4 years, and that Laurel had left specific instructions for her office to contact me after her death. I told her I didn't know Laurel had a personal attorney. She said gently that there were a number of things she needed to walk me through in person and that she understood it might be a difficult time, but that Laurel had been very particular about the timing. I drove to Nashville on a Thursday morning in December. The office was on the 4th floor of a building near Vanderbilt, tasteful and quiet, the kind of place that smelled like old books and central heating. Susan Holt was maybe 45, calm-faced, with reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. She shook my hand and offered me coffee, and I said yes, mostly just to have something to hold. She sat across from me and folded her hands on the desk. "Mr. Codell," she said, "your daughter came to me 4 years ago and asked me to draw up a set of documents and hold them in trust. She gave me very specific instructions. If she were to pass away under any circumstances, I was to wait 3 weeks before contacting you. She didn't want you dealing with this in the immediate aftermath." I stared at her. What kind of documents? Susan reached into a drawer and set a manila envelope on the desk between us. And then, from beside it, she placed a single key on a keychain, a plain silver house key with a small paper tag to it. The tag had my name on it, written in Laurel's handwriting. "She purchased a property," Susan said, 14 months ago. It's a small house in a town called Millhaven, about 40 minutes east of Nashville. The deed is in your name. It has been in your name since the day of purchase." I looked at the key for a long moment. Why didn't she tell me? Susan paused before answering. "She explains that in the envelope. She asked me to give it to you to read privately. There's also a USB drive inside. I took the envelope. I didn't open it there. I drove 40 minutes east to a town I'd never heard of, to a house my daughter had apparently bought and kept secret for over a year, and I sat in the driveway for 10 minutes before I went inside. The house was modest. A white craftsman bungalow on a quiet street with oak trees. Maybe 1,200 square feet, a covered front porch with 2 rocking chairs, the kind of place that looked like it had been waiting for someone to come home to it. The key worked on the first try. Inside it was clean and still, furnished simply a couch, a kitchen table with 4 chairs, a braided rug in the hallway. On the mantel above the fireplace there was a framed photograph. It was a picture of me and Laurel taken maybe 15 years ago at a state park in Cumberland Falls. She was laughing at something I'd said, and I had my arm around her, and neither of us was looking at the camera. I didn't remember who took it. I stood there looking at it for a long time. Then I found the desk in the back bedroom. It was a small roll-top desk, the old-fashioned kind. On top of it sat a laptop computer plugged into the wall, and taped to the laptop was a note in Laurel's handwriting. "Dad, plug in the USB drive from the envelope, then open the folder called For You." My hands were shaking by the time I figured out the drive. There was one folder. Inside it, one video file. I double-clicked it. Laurel's face filled the screen. She was sitting at this same desk in the same room. She was wearing a grey sweater I recognized. Her hair was pulled back. She looked tired but steady, the way she always looked when she'd made up her mind about something. "Hi, Dad," she said. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I'm not there to say this to your face." I stopped the video. I had to walk to the window and stand there for a full minute before I could go back to it. Laurel talked for 47 minutes. She started at the beginning, or what she said was the beginning, though I later learned it went back further than even she knew. She told me that about 2 years into her marriage to Reeves, she started noticing things. Small things at first. Money moving between accounts in amounts that didn't match anything she'd authorized. A second cell phone she found in his jacket pocket that he explained away as a work phone, but that had no work contacts on it whatsoever. A name that appeared in his calendar every few weeks, just initials, TB, always on a Wednesday, always in the afternoon. She didn't confront him. She told me she'd thought about it and decided she needed to understand the full picture before she said anything. That was Laurel. She was methodical. She didn't fire before she aimed. Over the course of the next year, she documented everything. She kept records in a locked notes app on a phone Reeves didn't know existed. She hired a private investigator in Nashville, a retired detective named Hollis, and paid him out of a separate account she'd opened in her own name. What Hollis found changed everything. Reeves had been involved with a woman named Tamsin for over 3 years. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the insurance policy. Reeves had, 18 months before Laurel's death, taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on Laurel without her knowledge. He'd used a forged signature, a notary he'd apparently bribed, and a brokerage she'd never heard of. Hollis found the paperwork. Laurel had taken everything to an attorney, Susan Holt, and asked her to hold it in trust. She'd been in the process of building a case, quietly, carefully, the way she did everything. She told no one, not even me, especially not me, she said on the video, because she knew I would have gone straight to Reeves and she needed more time. She never got the time. The video was recorded 8 days before the accident. "I don't know that anything will happen to me," she said, looking straight into the camera. Her voice was even, but her eyes were not quite. "I hope this is all just precaution. I hope I'm sitting across a conference table from Reeves and his lawyer in 6 weeks and never have to think about any of this again. But if I'm not, if something happens, I need you to have all of it. Hollis has the originals. Everything is documented. The investigators' reports, the insurance policy, the account transfers, the phone records, the calendar. It's all in that envelope, Dad. Take it to the police. Take it to the FBI if you have to. Don't let anyone tell you it was just an accident." I sat in that back bedroom for a very long time after the video ended. The winter light came through the blinds and made long stripes across the floor. I could hear a dog barking somewhere outside. I thought about every Sunday evening phone call. I thought about the last time I'd seen her, in October, when she came down for my birthday and we'd gone to dinner at a place downtown and split a piece of pie, and she'd seemed a little quiet, but I put it down to work stress. I thought about all the things she must have been carrying that night and how she smiled anyway and told me she loved me in the parking lot and how I'd watched her drive away. Then I picked up my phone and called the Clarkson County Sheriff's Department. It took them 4 days to open a formal investigation. I understand now that it's not like television. Nobody rushes. There's paperwork and jurisdiction questions and chains of command and a great deal of waiting in beige carpeted offices while people make phone calls. I brought them everything. The USB drive, the printed documents from the envelope, Hollis's contact information. The detective assigned to the case was a quiet man who wrote things down slowly and nodded a lot and told me almost nothing, which I found maddening at the time and now understand was professionalism. What I learned later, pieced together from the investigation and from the things they eventually told me, was this. The pickup truck driver, a man named Colton, had a connection to Reeves that wasn't accidental. Phone records showed 11 calls between them in the 6 weeks before the accident. Colton had a prior record. He'd been paid through a series of transfers that looked like routine Venmo payments but traced back through Reeves's secondary account, a total of $14,000 in 3 installments. Tamsin had known. She wasn't the one who'd planned it, they determined, but she'd known. She'd been waiting. There was a voicemail she'd left Reeves, retrieved from his second phone, in which she said, and this was read to me by the detective, and I will hear it for the rest of my life. After, we can go anywhere you want, after. Colton was arrested in February. He took a deal in exchange for testimony and got 22 years. Reeves, of course, was dead. His estate, which he'd arranged, also through documents Laurel later discovered, to transfer entirely to Tamsin in the event of his death, was frozen pending the fraud investigation and ultimately returned to Laurel's estate, which passed to me. Tamsin was charged with conspiracy and accessory before the fact. She pled not guilty. She was convicted by a jury in Clarkson County on a Thursday afternoon in September. She was sentenced to 18 years. I was in the courtroom that day. I sat in the 3rd row on the left side. When they read the verdict, I didn't feel what I expected to feel. I thought I would feel something sharp and bright, some clean version of relief or vindication. What I actually felt was tired and sad and quietly grateful that my daughter had been meticulous enough, careful enough, brave enough to build the case herself from the inside, because without her there would have been nothing. They would have called it a tragic accident and moved on, and Tamsin would be on a beach somewhere and Colton would have spent his money and no one would have known. But Laurel knew, and she made sure I would know. That house in Millhaven is mine now. I've driven out there most weekends through the spring and summer. I've sat on the covered porch in one of those rocking chairs and watched the oaks in the yard and drunk my coffee and tried to understand the version of my daughter I never got to meet. The one who was this careful, this quietly ferocious. This determined that love was worth protecting even when she couldn't protect herself. She left me other things in that envelope too. A letter, handwritten, 6 pages, telling me things she'd apparently always meant to say and kept putting off the way we all put things off. She told me about her happiest memory, which was a camping trip we took when she was 11, just the 2 of us, and how she'd been scared of the dark but hadn't wanted to say so. She told me about a time in high school she'd made a decision she was ashamed of and had been afraid to tell me, and how it had weighed on her for 20 years. She told me that after her mother died, she used to call my phone and let it ring twice and hang up, just to see my name on the screen, just to feel connected to something. I didn't know any of that. You think you know someone for 38 years, and there are whole rooms in them you've never seen. There's a plaque on the wall of the front room now. I had it made and hung it myself. It reads, Laurel Ann Caudle. She loved carefully and completely. She did not go quietly. I'm 64 years old. I have the house she gave me, the justice she arranged from beyond her own death, and the 6-page letter I've read so many times the fold lines are wearing through. I don't know what comes next for me. I don't know what any of this means in the long arc of a life, but I know this. My daughter trusted me with the truth. After everything, she trusted me with it. And every morning when I wake up in that house and hear the oaks moving outside the window, I think about what it means to love someone enough to fight for them even when you're afraid, even when you're running out of time, even when you have to do it alone. She did that for me, and I will spend whatever years I have left making sure it was not done in vain.